Welcome back to Goddess Vibrations, a spiritual sexual empowerment show. Welcome back to Kirti, who has been retreating for the month of April. And I kind of have been too, truth be told, probably mostly retreating a bit this year, actually. We've been a little bit more sporadic, but we can't be the spiritual sexual empowerment show unless we are honoring our divine feminine and resting when rest is called for. But we are back, as Kirti was just saying, more strong and powerful than ever. And we wanted to do a special episode called Desert Downloads to talk about I had a little birthday retreat with some very special wise women goddesses, Kirti being one of them. And we had some pretty powerful downloads as we kind of rebirthed in a cosmic womb, which we'll go into later. And we'll see how much detail we end up going into. But Kirti and I in particular had some very synonymous things that we were realizing, and different, but synonymous things that we were realizing about love, about partnership, about what it means to be a dynamic woman and be fully expressed and expansive, and do the partnership dance and what that may require as we try to navigate this, not only in our own lives and showing up in an embodied way, but also helping our clients move through that, because whatever we are feeling, you are also feeling somehow within you, because we are all connected.
Yeah.
So welcome back, Kirti. As you, say whatever you want to say, I'm just going to pop out the chat box because I know we have some people that are going to be joining us today. Golden's planning on being here, one of the powerful goddesses that was there with us on the trip. And I'm excited to interact with our audience if you all have questions as well.
Powerful.
Take it away, Kirti.
Soaking it all in and actually envisioning us there in that beautiful home on your birthday. And I was earlier just thinking about one of the biggest downloads I got was like how we all got together and just handled it and had a really great time and showed up for each other in ways that I feel like I haven't really done in a long time. I've been in such co-ed settings, or where I'm like one woman with a lot of my guy friends. And so it was really powerful for me. The biggest download was like how important it is to take time away with your sisters and with your deepest friends who kind of are ready to see you and hold you in a light of what you want to become. And to get away and do that was really, really powerful, first and foremost. And it allowed us to just like chat away and take up time and talk and not feel restricted in our expressions and how much time we were taking, which was really powerful. And like letting each one of us express in the way we needed to and not feel judged or shamed for when emotions came up, when tears came through, when laughter and jokes, and some were in a silly mood and some were in a different mood. It was like it was just full acceptance. And biggest download for me, that's important.
Yeah, full acceptance. And that's how the trip really shaped itself, was those who accepted it. So I initially was talking about maybe going to Ojai, going to the mountains. I was kind of feeling called over there, talking about a tribe co-ed kind of trip, kids and dogs welcome kind of trip. And there were so many variables and shifting things that I was getting a bit stressed, because I'm like, I just can't, it's slippery. I can't seem to nail down plans. And then I thought, well, that's because I'm not supposed to. It's kind of like my business, how that's evolved. It's like it kind of shapes itself. I just have to listen and follow the energy. So I just went with who was a hell yes and all in, and kind of tailored it to that experience. And it was exactly what it needed to be. And I knew that when we switched locations and I felt into Joshua Tree, that we were in for a spiritual experience, because the desert tends to do that anyway. But in particular, for me, Joshua Tree always has been really powerful. And I had done a very powerful ceremony last time I was there, and I wanted to return to the land a year later and thank the land and thank the national park for it's healing, and absorbing and taking my fears and my worries and really just transmuting them, and throwing back abundance. And so to come back just a year later, being in like financial distress from the pandemic, coming back a year later, renting out a luxurious, amazing, beautiful space where we could just, wander around. Yeah, just do whatever we wanted to do and just be essentially delighted from every angle, was really a gift. And it was something that I asked for and beyond. So it was really special. And I noticed you have some kind of indigenous earrings that you're wearing, and check these out.
Yeah, I see them. They're like
cactuses. It's the desert. I bought these from Essie yesterday.
Oh, perfect.
And Essie is our West African dance teacher. He is kind of a dance teacher too.
Yeah.
A drumming teacher. And Kirti and I both take a group class with him, and it's loads of fun in so many different ways. But she makes and sells jewelry and resells jewelry. And I saw these and I was like, oh yeah, I have to get these. So this is my desert downloads earrings.
Yeah, I love them.
I have my little stars here, just like the stars that we saw, lightning bolt of transformation. I got my moon, my divine feminine over here.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, so we are decked out in our adornments on theme. And I see Golden, the life midwife, is saying hello. Hi, Golden, who is there with us, who also said yes to the adventure. And, it was Golden at one point where I have to say, the one day where we would get to spend the whole day just not having to pack up and arrive and settle in, because with Airbnbs, one of the things is, it's not like a hotel room, you can just leave it all disheveled. You have to kind of leave it how you came, which is, you're spending like 2 hours of your vacation now cleaning, which is
right.
But anyway, it's respect for the, the owner and the host and all of that as well. But the one day that we had the full day uninterrupted was the coldest day. There was like 70-mile-an-hour winds the night before, shaking and rattling the windows. And my dreams of sunbathing nude in the desert with no, like people around, it kind of got shattered until we thought, well, let's go in the hot tub. And 7 hours later, we're still in the hot tub. And Golden's like, oh, it's like a womb. Like we're like quadruplets, like in this womb. And it was so beautiful. And I'm thinking we're there to celebrate my birthday. My name actually means birth, Natasha. And so it just seemed so appropriate. And each one of us had different downloads about mothering, being a mother, being mothered, femininity, partnership, love, all of these things, boundaries, all of these things. And I think it's just so powerful and potent for
body image
being a big one too. And I just, there were no expectations of the trip for me, except to be, I guess, surprised and delighted. And I know that, I'll talk deeper about some of my downloads, but I will say one of the things that has consistently remained since I got home is I have this erotic experience now of the wind. And it was like something that was such a menace, and it was cold wind. But being in that hot tub, and it's like we would get warm and then we would pop up, and it was like, oh, it feels good for like 30 seconds. Okay, back down. And that's probably, we're joking why we stayed there so long. It was like, it took a lot of courage to get up and out. But now we've had some windy, cold days here in San Diego as well, including your dance class the other day. And as we were, was that only yesterday? Oh my gosh, it was just yesterday. It feels like ages ago already. But I was just loving the wind whipping through my hair. And I was, it was cooler, and I left my sweatshirt on and all of that stuff during your class, but I just felt like the wind was like making love to me. And that's how I felt in Joshua Tree. And I think what happened is my senses just came online, and it's like something that I didn't register previously as erotic or even pleasurable now suddenly became that. Because I love the Caribbean breezes, they're warm, they're like constantly blowing your hair around, and it's like awesome. But this cold, dry desert wind is a different kind of creature. but
Yeah.
making peace with it. And like I say, I did an Instagram post about playing with the wind rather than dancing in the rain. You're like playing with the wind, and just having your way with life, no matter which way the wind blows.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
That's what I'm left with.
Oh, that's really good. I just want to take a moment and really, I can totally feel the wind and the breeze and all of the cool little treats of nature, little lizards, and just being out and separated away from the city is going to, I think, turn on your senses in a unique way. Going to school at UC Santa Cruz, it was really powerful to be able to be in a learning environment. But every time I would go home, it was like I'm hiking home or I'm riding through bike trails, and it was constantly recharging my body. And I don't doubt that that's a big reason why I just had such a beautiful college experience. It's immersed in nature. So yeah, I think another download, besides making a commitment, like really, we already are saying like, all right, let's plan the next year's eclipse, and like, what is the goal? Like, what is our next goal trip? And, we'll see who's a yes then. And that will be so interesting to see like what we create then. And so I think that was a big piece is you hear that with masterminds a lot or things like that, where people are taking out the time to do that. Well, this was like a really powerful, organic way to do it that felt a little bit more natural, ancestral, like girls trip, but we had also like loose structure of like what we each wanted to feel this weekend. And I think that was really nice because we were all in different activation spaces. Some of us were feeling really downtrodden, whereas others were like, wow, like I just had a really successful month, right? And then some of us were transitioning in our relationships. And I have to say, all of us, however, were dealing with some aspect of the mother. And we all have had some unique interactions with our mothers in these past months. And so that was really powerful. And I've been feeling this huge call of the mother work because, my partner, his mother had passed away. It's been about almost 7 or 8 months. And just seeing that effect on him and like having both of my parents here with me, it's been profound, just the theme of the mother and seeing like relationships and once a parent passes, some of the thought patterns and the processes that go through, your mind. And it has me thinking about mother and a lot of like the dynamics and relationships with our mothers. And honestly, made me think about my own relationship with my mother and, where I want to be and what I'm trying to create with her in terms of like, what are we navigating moving forward instead of like playing out that old story still when I see you and like we argue and nag about the same things. It's like we've been really working on trying to shift that. And I think that there comes a time in our lives where we realize that bonding and building that relationship with our mother, and it can look like a lot of different things. It doesn't mean you're talking on the phone every day. It doesn't necessarily mean that, it could be lots of different ways of building the bond with your mother. Sometimes your mother's not even aware of that bond that you're building energetically, but that provides so much healing for the feminine within you, your female self, and how it's kind of been imprinted by that mother nurturing energy. And I'm becoming a true believer, especially after the desert, that once we tap into that and we tap into that with other sisters and we're able to share that in water, with that element of water, with the wind on that desert land, with the heat of the sun, we were able to access the motherboard almost of like the ultimate mother from which we're all born out of. And I felt so clear, about, I felt a moment where my heart actually just opened up a little bit more and I could feel all the access to how much love I have to share from the mother.
Right. And, both of us kind of owning our strong mother archetype and mother vibes, and just realizing that that's not something that can be really shut off. It's just, how do you make the most of it and redirect it? And the healing has to be done with that as well. And that is the foundation to the sacred partnership dance. And before we went live, I just happened to go back to our Tantra and Tulum episode, the after show, and watch some pieces of it to refresh, because from the time we were in Tulum, I think we were returning on that first eclipse cycle. And so when we got back and we filmed that episode, we were in the eclipse portal, just like right now we're in the eclipse portal, because we just had an eclipse on Saturday morning, and the next one will be mid-May. So that's the big, astrological event. So this more recent one is in Taurus, and then in 2 weeks will be in Scorpio, which is its polar opposite. And the last in Tulum were Gemini Sagittarius. And so that eclipse, those themes, and reflected in our Tantra and Tulum episode, it was really about establishing the family. It was establishing the community. It was, I even talked about in that episode, corrective experiences of rebrothering and resistering, right? And it was like, okay, if we have a tree with all of these branches, we're strengthening the branches as a collective. And if I think back to what's happened since that eclipse, some branches withered away and maybe, ceased to be part of the tree. Some perhaps are in remission and they may flower and bud again. Maybe they won't, and some are flourishing and still, in community with each other, communicating to, the different branches. And now, that's, and of course, Gemini Sagittarius being more out in the world, social, lots of energy, lots of communication and groups and whatever else. And now Taurus and Scorpio, Taurus, really being kind of like this divine mother energy, even though I think Scorpio is the more feminine and Taurus is the more masculine in that duo. But Taurus really being about Earth and Mother Earth, and that the nourishment and the second chakra and sexuality and fertility and all of these things. So it makes total sense to me now that we're kind of looping around to the mother dynamic, and then how that relates to partnership, whereas before it was kind of like the brothering and the sistering and healing and correcting some of those sister wounds, brother wounds, whatever else that needed to be corrected in order to move into the sacred union. Yeah. So it's interesting that we that our soul feels the call to go away during the eclipse portals and have this altered perspective to come back. And of course, we're still in it right now. So we'll see in another 18 months, 2 years, how this one unearths some things and how we go deeper. The other thing that I was watching in that episode, which was really cool, really fucking cool to see, is at the end we were talking about our offerings and some exciting things that we were starting. And it's really cool to look back and to see how not only did those things launch, but to see them flourishing.
Oh, yay. That's
so
awesome.
I was talking about my mind body skills groups, which I've rebranded and expanded, and its inclusion. And now Shofar, who knew that Shofar would be joining me in that journey? And it's been such a rich experience, right? To have his energy work and his insights and the space that he holds and all of that. And it has it's been something much bigger than I really even thought it would be back then. And to see your movement medicine classes just take off, I was shocked when I pulled up yesterday. I was like, damn, that's a big group. Like, that's awesome.
I was too. It's like, that's beautiful. You just don't know.
And it's people that haven't been there in a really long time, but they always know to come back because you show up consistently. They know where to find you when they need the healing. And that's so, I mean, we did it. We planted those seeds, way back then. And just like creating that, raising the Kundalini, like creating the love, the buzz, and just motherly overflow out to the world. And here we are in overflow, but also like experiencing the abundance back from that too.
Yeah.
In all the ways, it's energy, it's energy.
I feel like we should talk about the juicy stuff that came through for us on relationships.
Yeah.
And sovereignty concepts of like just understanding, I mean, for me, I know being with you all was really powerful after just, my partner and I are exploring new ways of being. And, that for me required some time of separation, which was really new for me, to step into that and be like, well, I need to actually think about this for myself, and ask for 28 days, a moon cycle, to really sit in the cave of what I was feeling before. I think I shared some of what I was feeling with a couple of you, but really didn't talk to too many people. I didn't want to influence my own feelings. And, there was parts of me that felt so defeated, and like, oh, but the trip helped me see that there was, that wasn't even really present, actually. Like, it is all a step towards knowing myself more clear. And also it helped me expand, like, to love my partner even more. Like, how does that even happen in the midst of a separation? And I think the juicy piece of that is to realize that the journey and the work is the nectar, it's the flavor, it's the juice, because that journey and that work of being willing to, like, explore the relationships with our mothers, the willingness to go in and, like, talk about the many relationship dynamics, not just of this relating, but of stories that we feel, or patterns that are riding from before, or even our mothers, or anything else on the planet. And to be able to, like, commit to that work and sit in that work, it's the love. The pieces of relationship that are glamorized and are packaged and really forced upon us through media, songs in the grocery store, and, like, what I'm saying, like, this kind of just marriage culture and this family culture of what family should look like in the United States. When you're willing to do the work and all of that starts to crumble, you realize the level of love that's really available. And what we were talking about was companionship, really. Like, what is most important to us? And we each got to speak to that. And really the common theme there was, like, that is the biggest part of the relating is companionship. Can you trust that person with even doing the work with them? And would they be willing to hear you out? And what does it take for you to hold space for each partner of the partnership to grow? And honestly, the sex is like cherry on top. The sex is like a small added benefit, but really what is happening as we evolve spiritually within ourselves is that we're really looking for the companion that's going to help us on our spiritual path. And sometimes that spiritual path,
potatoes, you can't just eat sugar all day long. You can't just eat the cherries all day long and expect to be satiated.
No. And it's like the cherry's so small. And it's so funny how we act like it's the biggest part of the sundae. And it's like, it's not. And it's like when you're running a program of what relationship is supposed to be, it's really going to hold you back from the possibility of what relationship could be for your ultimate healing, this lifetime story, and once we're willing to accept that and lean into that there's actually nothing necessarily wrong with your love story up until this moment, but that everything was a step towards the next fucking biggest love of your life. And even if those of us who are in relationship are, like, trying to transmute and up level our current relating, same thing. It's not the same relationship that it was 2 days ago, 10 days ago. It's all about the experiences that we have and what we attach to them, and the feelings we attach to them that make them memorable. You know what I'm saying? So, like, if we actually pay attention to the things that benefited us along the journey of each relationship, we can start to feel an opening. And sometimes it's easy to get into the storytelling, just telling a story. I like telling a story, and then there's storytelling, where you got to retell that story. And I love that by the end of the trip, we went into the shadow only to be, like, lifted and recognize that the shadow is there because of the light. So for me, I got to understand the level of love that I feel to trust my partner, and what is that going to require for me to trust my partner in what he desires, and also, do I trust myself?
I was going to say that's what it really is. Trusting your partner is trusting yourself, because if you can
Yeah.
trust yourself to know that, hey, if a line gets crossed, it's like, that's it, then you can trust your partner,
Yes.
because you know
Yeah.
that regardless of what somebody else does, you'll be fine. You're
Yeah.
still,
And if you're doing the work on yourself, ultimately,
yeah.
you're going to be fine. And that's the trust. That's the ultimate. The trust piece is really, do you trust that divine has your back? And like, really, if you're doing the work, you're going to be okay, because you got here somehow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the fact that we had this super plush environment this weekend after what we've navigated, financially, and with just our families and the things, and our injuries and our healings and all sorts of things going on. And to be able to carve out 3 days to just like take the time to rebuild relationships with ourselves, with each other, really, is, I think that's the juiciest part, because I came back knowing how complete that I am, and also trusting that the love between my partner and I is beyond the program, and that I
Yeah.
can trust.
Yeah. And trusting is like a good, it's a good way of saying it. And I think, for me, it's so interesting how parallel our experiences have been in many different ways, many of our life experiences, but even in this navigating partnership, whereas my most recent partner lost more than one father figure, and your partner lost his mother. And the ways that can impact a relationship. And it's been interesting to see, interesting and inspiring to see the two of you navigating that differently than we have. And also, maybe there's, which I think we've discussed, maybe there's no wrong way to do it.
Right.
It's like the work still gets done however it needs to get done, if you're showing up to yourself and that self-worth, that self-love, that self-sovereignty. And I think when there's trouble, when there's bumps in the road, when there's twists and turns and boulders, maybe we were in a national park with huge boulders, like it's very symbolic too.
Yeah.
It's easy to look at it and be like, is this what's happening? Is this what the fuck is going on? Is this like, I'm triggered. I'm like, does he not see me? Does, whatever else? Because that has been the old story. That has been the experience of being gaslit, of being used, abused. And I'm speaking for the feminine in general. I was even talking to a divorce mediator today, and she was sharing a really crazy story of these two gay men, one of them being a psychiatrist and being the kind of like the battered wife archetype, even though it's a very powerful man who is a specialist in mental health. And you see how the feminine, gets abused and can be used and whatever else, no matter what body you're in, what genitalia you have. And I feel like that being such a, not only an old story, but a repetitive story, having it happen over and over again, this betrayal for whatever the fuck reason. I always think it's kind of an initiation, right? To sharpen your sword, to grow your light, to be like, have that adversity, that pressure, so that you can remember who you are. And I know for me, I'm in my Chiron return, like, oh, am I? In my body, it definitely is. And the emotional healing has been so beautiful and so powerful in ways that I didn't even know I needed to heal. And it's like, if you haven't felt it before, you don't even know what you're missing.
Right.
And so to have this experience of fuck, I'm awesome. Like, I feel good. Like, I'm got my shit together. Like, I'm resilient. No matter what happens to me, I'll be okay. And it's not like a toughness of like, I'll be fine and putting on a brave face, which I definitely have in the past. It's like a deep knowing of I'll
Mhm.
be fine. And I'm so fine that I know that I can soften. I can even be soft. And so that's my
Right.
path now is really leaning into that softness. And I couldn't do that really until I felt that full self-love to this point of like self-love is so cliche, this word we throw it around, but this self-love to the point of like really fucking trusting myself and knowing that I'm not taking it personally. Whatever happened, it isn't about me. It's about whatever's going on with that person and whatever's going on with me in the dance, the entanglement of energy. But it's not about me. It's the shadow side of narcissism, the narcissistic spectrum, right? It's like you have somebody that's maybe a little bit selfish, and then the person is like, oh, is it me? Is it me? But that's still like really focused on your self in a way that isn't really helpful, you
Mhm.
know, towards growth and moving forward. And so, but it's only natural to go into that when there's bumps in the road.
Yeah.
And we've had that story. And so like,
And not just bumps in the road in this lifetime. We know a lot of times those bumps in the roads, the reason why they're in our, for us, is because we learned them from somewhere too, of how to keep creating those same bumps. Yeah.
yeah. So like witnessing your different, you know, all of the spectrum of emotions through this. And I can see it because I just went through it 6 months ago. So to like, I'm like, fuck, I remember when I did that too. I remember like that feeling. I remember that. But it's like easy for me to see as the space soldier or the observer, like, oh no, like this is just part of the process. But this is a deep connection. This is a deep love. It's easy to see for me. This is an, you know, an infinite love, a timeless love. And how do you fit something so big and so expansive into these little relationship containers that were, you know, little molds that were created for us? And I think of like, I read this book one time. It's called From Sirius to Earth, A Therapist Discovers a Soul Exchange. And it was a woman who was a school psychologist in California. And she thought the whole school system was bullshit and whatever else. So she did her time, she retired, and then she started this past life regression practice. She met a client who had environmental sensitivity and all these crazy psychic things. And when she would put her into hypnosis, she would regress back to like past lives. And she pretty much, under several sessions, kind of shared with her the secrets of the universe and how everything energy was created. It's a very fascinating book. I read it in December 2012, right during that Mayan calendar shift week, and it blew my mind open. It was like once I read that, I couldn't go back. And what reminds me of is this, she was connecting with this with Hathor. She said that she was an iteration of the energy of Hathor, and that Hathor had tried to come, was dear friends with Christ, and tried to come back with him when he was born into a body, but she never asked permission of the mother. And because she didn't ask permission, she exploded the mother's body. Because that amount of energy coming in and trying to fit into this little skin suit is like how it's delicate. It's like it doesn't translate this like huge cosmic energy into these bodies. It has to be done with consent and permission, and it's very delicate, right? And so it kind of reminds me of this infinite love. If you've shared this love in many lifetimes prior in this deep connection, and you've been in every gender and skin color and culture and all these things and navigated just about everything there is to experience up until this point, and yet we're at a very powerful consciousness shift where we're experiencing human life on earth like we've never experienced it before, with technology and all this stuff. How the hell do you put that kind of love into this time? It's like we're on shaky ground. It's everything's changeable. So again, like being seduced or made love to by the wind, it's about like leaning in to whichever way the wind blows. But you can't go wrong if you hold that love and follow, like the card I pulled when we got back from Joshua Tree. It's like the many paths of the heart. There's many paths of the heart, and they all end up in the same place. So if you're following the path of the heart, which traditionally, if we watch movies and all this stuff, we think is like the romance story, the fairy tale. That's not it. The path of the heart is what is the most heart opening path for you that also expands you and your sacred calling and your sacred purpose and allows you to synergistically create with your sacred union partner, whoever you choose that to be. And it is a choice, and sometimes it's not a choice. Like you don't get to choose the strength of the energetic connection. Like we were talking about that in our inclusion group just before this. It's the quantum entanglement. You're there. You're your energy is like this, no matter if you never see each other again. And you don't get to choose that. You can say, I'm not talking to you anymore, but it's your energy is like, ha ha ha. Like
easier said than done sometimes. It's like it'll still be there. And I think that trust is about when that comes up of like, ha ha ha, it's like, yeah, that's a transmission. Now that's like, oh, okay, there's something actually still there for me to work on here, work with here. There's that cord. Sometimes we also, that came up this weekend too. It's just like the concept of like cord cutting. Sometimes it's not necessarily need to be a cut, but perhaps just let the release away, like a leaf falls from the tree. Like, just why is there such a need to like cut, like, oh, I don't want this anymore. And like, that's totally been my way in relationship. Like last 20 years has been that for me, where when it's time to go, I try my best. Like I will stay in, we will try everything, I will try all of the different ways to make it fly, make it work. And when it's known that it's not working, I'm done, I'm out. It's like, I feel complete that I have tried everything. And at that point, there's not really much my partner can say. I usually will call in like another woman, because that's usually helps me get away from a relationship really fast. And I feel like all of my old patterns and tendencies with relationship, that doesn't even work anymore. Like that doesn't even trigger me now, the idea of another woman. I mean, of course I'm human, right? And so if it's somebody you love, you have these but in that deep, deep trust piece, I'm just, like I told you, like, why, of course, women are amazing. Why wouldn't you see the fucking gorgeousness of all the women on this planet? We are gorgeous. We are beautiful. I would hope that you would connect deeply and understand that, but that's also coming from the deep trust, like right here, right? That trust, that if we can just trust that we know that nature's got this, if we can trust that nature's got this, that we can put a seed in the soil and something will sprout with love and care and water and energy and attention. And really at that love, attention, positivity it will grow. And that even the smallest creature on this planet can still find food. Shows us how truly abundant we are, but we've been programmed to be very limiting. And I think that as women, how you ask the question, how do we be this infinite energy? As the more we do this work, we start to just bust wide open and we realize we're this infinite energy, that we are like, wow, what a blessing to be born with vagina and breasts, just like the mother from which we arrived. Like, this is a blessing, not a curse. Oh my God. Like, I am magical. And like, I have so much to just share and endow on a deeper level. How do we live in this body and in this quote unquote modern day world, which will be ancient one day? How do we do that? I think it's just staying tapped in to the mother, and also staying tapped in to creating, like, it doesn't matter if you have a job, it doesn't matter if you are married, it doesn't matter what life setup you're in, but you cannot avoid the work. You just can't. And that's actually how you continue to develop and build the trust with yourself, because you're showing up consistently for the parts of you that are ready to show up. And that's why they're coming up. But if we repress and we push down and we just get lost in our things, and we just go like, oh, we're doing the right thing, and I'm following the rules, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, we don't really get to tap in to that motherboard that we're talking about, that infinite abundance.
I was going to say, I was like, it's abundance. That's what it is. And so whether we're talking about financial abundance or abundance of partners or sex or whatever else. It's like the feminine is, its natural state is abundance. It's not scarcity. And I know that Master Yao and Shofar talked about this on one of their podcasts, where Master Yao was saying the masculine is kind of a scarcity. It can be a scarcity game. It's like, let me, oh, look at this land. It's beautiful. Let me put my, rope it off and claim it, and it's mine. And then the masculine in its exuberance and, excessiveness, I would say, when it goes overboard, is, also doing this to women, which are an expression of the feminine, shutting her down. So like, if we truly want to feel that flow of all types of abundance, money, whatever it is, then you have to be in right relationship with that wanting to own, control, possess, but also it can't be too much and it can't be too little, because you're not then going to hold on to what you are there for. And I think of things like being in your, and this has happened to me the last couple of weeks, of being in your dance circle, and I look around at the women and they're just so lit up and they're so beautiful. Every woman is just so beautiful, and as they're just glowing and shining, and I can kind of like observe, and I can feel a little bit of what it might be like to be the masculine, and to just be like, wow, it's like, it's a feast. It's like, I want to talk to this one and this one and this one and this one. I want to experience a little bit. I want to taste a little bit of each of their light. And as a woman, I'm, yes, a bisexual woman, but also a woman, like I can just enjoy, and I don't have to interact. I don't have to even say anything to her, but if it naturally aligns, I'll tell her she's beautiful, or I'll give her a hug, or tell her something that she, what I noticed about her or whatever. And it feels very genuine and authentic. And I'm not trying to own, claim, have anything, but I can see a very masculine man. He can't help but want to be that energy to penetrate and own and whatever else. And it's our job then as the feminine to keep that, keep the dance. And this is also, I'm still in, this transmission, because we were talking about this a bit in inclusion, the sacred dance of the feminine and the masculine. And I shared some text messages with you earlier today on this as well. And also having, a gentleman like express to me how my energy comes across, my feminine energy comes across online. And this is not somebody I have a personal relationship with. So it was really fascinating for me to hear and read his reflections. And I was like, wow, that is how I want to be seen. And I felt very seen. And I was like, this is amazing, And so
he was also very talking about how feminine you are, which is interesting, because that's something that we don't really hear about ourselves.
Not often. And like you said, being a dynamic woman, but and he talked about the femininity and it being arousing to him because it's open and free, which is exactly what calls in these masculine men. But then they want to dominate, own it, control it. And then she's now fully domesticated and withers away. And she's no longer that bird that attracted him in the first place. She's in a cage and needs to be fed. And there's resentment and like all of this stuff. And we don't want to be the bird in the cage either, but we also want to be taken care of and nurtured and, have a little bird bath to flit around in when we want, and all of that stuff. I mean, I could go on and on with the metaphors, but it's the dance, and each person has to make sure that the like you said, the space is created so that you can continue to do this instead of, and then get into these ownership and control paradigms. But it was really, it was just, I loved hearing him own his desire to own, but knowing consciously can't do that, because the women, he even used the word, women have been castrated. And I love the fact that he used that word, because it's a word we typically reserve for men. Oh, I felt neutered by your feminism, or I felt neutered by your directness, or your masculine, or whatever else. And it's like, he's like saying, no, this is this feminine in you is what, this wild and free feminine is what is arousing to me. And I want to do this, but I know I can't do that, because that will, do this. Anyway, very interesting. And I, what came through to me in our inclusion group today too, was that the feminine, I think, wants him to want to own her, but then not own her. She doesn't want to be owned, but she wants him to want to own her in some ways, because it's being claimed. It's being chosen. It's being like, I'm his, I'm this. And there is something very attractive and sexy about that. And in the same way that there's something attractive and sexy about jealousy, right? When it's in just the right measure. But when it goes overboard into now taking action, and that in the metaphor of, you know, the man noticing these beautiful women that he wants to taste and have a little bite of or piece of, it's like, can you just admire it and note it and like notice it and feel it and not have to do anything about it, right? And so that is abundance. That is abundance. You don't have to capture it.
Osho likes to talk about a story of just, when you pass a whole bunch of flowers, how about taking them all in, really smelling them, looking at their beauty, enjoying them, and saying, wow, look at what nature has created for us to delight in. But we don't go and cut all of the flowers to take them home. So that urge that we have to immediately cut and take and own is usually a sign of what is deemed toxic masculine, or we like to say, healing masculine or wounded masculine. Toxic just sometimes feels, but I can see that is toxic. It is super toxic to just want to own something right away. And I call it the hit it and quit it, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, fast food attitude, right? And that's what that is. That is that scarcity mentality of like, I have to have it. And it's very mental. It's not from a place of feeling. Because if anytime we think I need that or I have to have it, which is a sign, it's desperate language. If you were to just take maybe, 3 to 5 breaths and really drop into, okay, why do I want this? Where's that coming from? And you just actually took a moment, you would realize that like, oh, that's just you kind of being desperate and pushing on it, where if you just took some time, you could actually lean into like, what is the real desire? And it gets in from the mind into a little bit more of the feeling, just to slow it down and think to yourself, what's going on, talk to yourself, connect with yourself. It's not a deep process that you have to go to like a yoga teacher training for. Yeah. This is really just understanding the body as a tool and a vessel and an instrument. Really, your body is your instrument.
In the spirit of that, I would say, to borrow a term from 19 Keys from that podcast, to play God's advocate, I think it's healthy masculinity to have that urge, but then again, not have to do anything about it. So it's like, because it's an ancestral program. That's always the way it's been. And so men are going to feel that in the body, but are they constantly out in this internal war about it? Are they sweating about it? Are they getting desperate, or are they just like, there it is?
Well, and since I've been doing this work, I have been attracting so many different types of men in my field. And I'll say the one theme that I've noticed is because I've been more honest with my masculine and my desires of like, and my hit it and quit it fast food attitude that I have programmed in me, and like working through that, I've actually attracted way more emotional men who kind of understand that piece, which is really, really nice. And it's nice to see men that are willing to receive feedback and also like honor that. And that is alive. Now, we don't really value that in society, in this matrix of how we are manifesting financially. So we see a lot of men who are doing that work, that emotional work of like trying to work that and not be so penetrative and not be so corporate and like, we already know like more of the programmed way of being. They're kind of struggling. And that's why we see women like us who are in these empowered spiritual roles, who are like open beams. And we actually want men like that in our lives. Now we've taken an infinite love into a really small definition of relationship as it has been ordained by marriage in this land through paper agreement. Like literally that has structured most. That is what has structured most, and women owned. I mean, marriage is about like the history of marriage is about owning women. Like, and I don't care because, oh, well, that's the past. But we have to remember that, like, just like we can remember what it's like to be 2 years old, or maybe I do, but maybe 5 years old for most people, right? We can also, in our being, because we are of this earth, we can remember what happened centuries ago on this land. And that is all inside of us. And so to break those codes, we've got to be willing to understand, you know, the wounded masculine in all of us, which comes from our purpose not being accepted on this planet. You see? And that is a healthy masculine thing to want to be able to get. But when you're living in a system that constantly is like closing the door on that, that creates generations of a wounded purpose. And so now we have this wounded purpose, and then we have our feminine who's ever abundant. Is she good? And so this is the other thing, you know, some people may agree with me or disagree, take what lands, release what doesn't. This is just from my work that has worked on me. I don't believe in toxic feminine. I also don't believe, I might believe in like a feminine that feels, but I don't think the feminine energy as it occurs in nature is toxic. It is always going to heal and balance out where the masculine is kind of doing too much and stretching itself thin. The feminine's always here to balance that out. And I really got that this weekend. It was like, I was going, so many events, so many this, so many that, clients, this, that, you know, getting so committed to the work. And it's like, I was losing my femininity. And that was the dynamic that was playing in the relationship. And it's not losing my femininity. It was pretty much just like the balance, the seesaw was a little off. And so in a partnership, as I became more of like the caretaker and like making money and success and like wanted to really support my partner as he was in his creative space, it just became a mother instead of a lover. But what I got this weekend is that the mother is the lover and vice versa. Like we've even been trained to think of those as separate. The mother is the previous. How did she become a mother in the first place?
Yeah, anybody wants to see our see us riff on that topic alone, that's in the on the YouTube channel from a couple months ago. We talked about mothering and lovering. That was a favorite.
Yeah, so abundance and love and money, if we can learn how to reprogram that concept of money, because that was a big part of our theme this weekend too, was like, how do we activate our power and our passion and actually support each other? So I want to say two things to that, is that if we can understand money, how nature provides abundance, and understand that code with money, this is what Lakshmi is for. That's what she helps us do, is helps us take that spiritual awareness, that grounded mother knowledge, wisdom, this third eye that all women with vagina are born with. When we take that wisdom and actually master the manifestation game through that love, that is the Lakshmi abundance. That's what we see as the gold coins. But that comes originally from understanding the seed. So if we can understand that, and guess what? The goddess, you know, those goddess vibrations that we're talking about, right? I mean, that comes from the vagina and the vocal cords, comes from engaging our voice, getting clear with who we are. And once we can start to complete this understanding loop that like our masculine has been injured for generations, and that's what has our money game off, that we have actually just been really removed from this infinite state of abundance, which is the true feminine that we all arrive from. There's always more where that came from. Mm-hmm. And there's never this feeling that, oh, this relationship is transitioning. It's like all of a sudden it's become, wow, what does this transition have to offer me? Because I'm the shit. So we'll see what comes of this.
That's it.
Like, ooh, who will I like? Ooh, if and I'm so proud because I had to go through all of the programming of my partner's request, and I made it all about him wanting to sleep with other women, wanting to be with other women. I totally ran a very just like what has been my old code around. I've never had a man tell me that he's not going to sleep with other women, and he doesn't. That's just a part of my story. I don't think all men are that way. I know plenty of men that are very loyal, but that has been a part of this lifetime of mine and a story and something that I'm here to heal and clearly become a professional at and help other women with. So I've had these experiences, and I totally was taking an old story and putting it on this present relationship. So a big download, juicy download is, it's really easy, you know, to take our lack of trust. But the truth was, I lacked trust in those relationships that I stayed. I lacked trust in myself. And so I put my trust in them. And now that I'm in a partnership where he's being honest with me and he's saying, I want to do that. I want to challenge my masculine to be in settings where I don't do what the typical masculine does. And what do you need in order to like help me and support me in this? Because it's happening. It was more like it's happening. And it was clearly for me, it was like it was happening as his mother transitioned. There was a big piece of him that was wanting to wake up, and a big new like tilling of his soil, of parts of him that really needed to come out and play now that this, we were just talking about sometimes the shadow aspects within a man really do extend from the mother. So like just kind of dealing with those things, and then to be able to believe for myself that I am worth that challenge, and to see him and say, I would love to experience that with a man, and to realize like I would love to experience that with a man, and I too am ready to spread and share my beam the way I have never been able to in relationship when my men have, and continue to do that with your trust instead of constantly feeling restricted, which he's never made me feel. But I have restricted myself because of my past, and because of my restriction, it was affecting, his attraction. And then you add in the caretaker and the motherly energy, and you can see it could be a real recipe for a relationship that kind of like doesn't have that same gorgeous passion that when you first met, because now you are enmeshed, you're entangled in one another's energy fields. And I'm learning like, wow, this is the juicy stuff though, because when you release any end goal that we've been fed, the program about what it's supposed to look like at the end of your life, or what is relationship and love supposed to look like, when you release that, it's like there's limitless possibility of what your relationship could be. And the other piece I wanted to speak to, like from what you were talking about with Yao and that conversation, is that another way to make it work in the present day for a woman is tribe. Powerful community that you build over time. Man, for the past 4 years, I've been committed. I've been committed to this. Like that was a big transmission when I got fired, liberated. And it was almost like what I had created in the school community was desperately needed outside of the school system. And I kept feeling like, how can I create that same recess energy with adult? Like, it's just like, how do I do that? How do I get like how kids just play with each other at recess? Like, that's what it is. That's what's needed. That energy. I loved recess duty for that reason. Just like, I love seeing kids just be with each other and like just drift and play and have fun. And so it takes tribe. Like we need to be able to feel comfortable, not just with our male partner, but other males in the community.
Yeah, well, not only that, but other females. So I have a couple.
Well, and that has come from sisterhood, because some of those males are with females. And so it starts, what was the thing next? You already got sisterhood.
Yeah, well,
it's the biggest piece there, because from sisterhood, we can call in the men, and we can actually model what is Tantra. See, Tantra was created as a philosophy, theory, whatever, written word for men.
To understand.
But it was setting women in our natural existence and state of being that helped them understand how to be tantric.
Right. Well, like I said, you and I are aligned in so many different ways. And, I got spit out by the school system too. I was there for 10 years, and it got to the point where my energy was going elsewhere until it became intolerable to stay there. And the peak culmination was actually having a boss that I really, really enjoyed. I had a lot of respect for her. All of a sudden, out of the blue in the summertime, denied my vacation request at the time when we are supposed to take vacation, because they really wanted to tell us to take vacation at certain times. And I thought, well, if I have these vacation days and I can't even take them when I'm supposed to take them, like, what the hell is this? And my dad was coming into town. He hadn't been here for like 15 years. It was just an absolute no. So that was the event that prompted me to resign early, before I felt ready. But I realize now it spit me out for those same reasons that you got spit out from a system that you maxed out, and you needed to go elsewhere. It couldn't contain the love and the healing. And what you're talking about is with tribe, I created a different kind of tribe first with my PhD program, then with my network marketing, nutritional business, and that community, and then with this sacred sexuality community and Mama Gina and that whole tribe, and then with our tribe, there's just been interlocking tribes, but they all have very similar values and abundance mindset and divine feminine as leadership mindset. And here's one thing that I know from the brain research that makes it a little bit challenging what you're navigating and what we're all navigating is that the male brain, the masculine, I'll say the masculine brain, is very compartmentalized. And so if you even talk to some of the brain researchers, they'll say when he's in the sex part of his brain, that's what he's thinking about is sex. And it is very, very hard for him to think of all these other things, which makes it hard for him to think of consequences of going too far in that area, right? And so if a man is actually stretching himself by flirting with that edge, let's say, because most men will end up not getting in trouble if they just stay far away from the ledge, right? And they, with other women in tribe or in society. But if you have a man who's wanting to flirt with that edge, it could be changing his neurobiology, which is good, but it's also a difficult task. Whereas as women, we are lit up in multiple parts of the brain. So we can be in the height of passion and a flirtation and feeling all of this attraction. And yet we know if it's not right and we want to keep this partnership, or it was going to be this consequence to our family, to our reputation, whatever, we can stop it, unless we're like already, in this ultimate wild place, but it's hard to turn back from. But it's much, much easier with women. We thrive on flirting with the edge, and we can dip our toes over the edge and come back multiple times easily. We have that brain flexibility. So that's where the trust piece comes in. First, that we trust ourselves enough to know that if a man says he's not going to sleep with somebody and then he does, it's not about us.
It's not about us.
Nothing to do with us.
Nothing to do with
it. It has everything to do with his choices and his process and
his path
and what he got caught up in. And then the other trust piece is that knowing that women are collective in what we're feeling. When we liberate ourselves, we liberate all women. Yao was talking about how when I spoke to him for our listeners onto the phone a few days ago, because he's going to be coming on this podcast in the near future. So he's telling me about some of his work and some of the, using orgasm for healing and with non-touch, not even touching a woman, but just tuning into her energy field and all of the amazing things that he's doing with vaporizing tissues and moving the energy out of the body and healing the body.
Oh, amazing.
He brought, a woman into orgasm with non-touch, and every woman in the room also started orgasming with her. And I said, well, of course, because women are collectivistic. So when a man is somebody else's partner and he's aroused by us or turned on by us, and I've been in this situation so many times where somebody else's partner I can tell is aroused by me in this situation and our interaction. And I'm a very flirtatious person, but I do not flirt with other people's partners. It's only a friendly flirtation, which is the same you would flirt with a baby or whatever, but not a sexually suggestive thing. But somehow it gets to the point where I can tell he's now propositioning or crossing a boundary, and it's me. I'm the one shutting it down. I'm the one stopping it because I love my sisters, and I won't do that to another woman's partner or another woman. Not only that, but it will hurt me to do that, because then I lose integrity for myself and I cross my own ethical boundaries. And that is a big problem for me and my own health. And so that's my code of ethics for myself and to my collective of sisters. And so I think that trust for other women to, number one, trust themselves, and two, trust their sisters to help the men who are flirting with this edge navigate that time when his neurobiology and his chemicals from this ancient conditioning takes over his conscious thought and his evolved brain,
Yeah, and I think that that also men need brotherhood support in that, because there's not very many. I know that that was a big thing, for me too. And it's like at the point I was like, oh, at the end of the day, I actually love this person so much and who this person is, that ultimately, if something were to happen and that was aligned for him at that point, like, we'll see, I'll deal with it then. But why ruminate over
Because then you
possibility?
create it energetically.
Yeah, yeah, and then it's like you're actually, and that's what was happening. Like, I started to make it all about that when, it required me. And what the crazy piece was, I realized today, is what it required was for me to believe that I am worth that,
Yeah.
because I haven't experienced it yet. So I actually had to have him let me know, that you're worth me doing this and not sleeping with other women, but actually going out there and figuring out, my next paths and how I want to return back to you. But you are never left. You never left, but because of my programming and, living with the man, and, oh, he's not living with me anymore. And like, oh, we're not doing this or we're not doing that. But the truth was, it's because I need to do it different. I've been doing it the same for 20 years. I have had like 3 marriages, marriage-like relationships where I did merit combine families, money, homes,
Yeah.
and then navigated those separations. And because they weren't legal, that money piece, and these were long. So for me, has always been about, okay, I'm doing things different, but I was still following the same program. And something right now is just like, no, actually, it's like, it needs to be completely different. Like, it's the same way, if we're not feeling the way the government is doing things and has been doing things for a long time, and we just keep showing up to vote, but we're not doing something drastically different, then what are we doing? What are we doing? We got to ask ourselves that. Are we just doing a different version of the same old shit?
Well, and to your point, and to your credit, and to the credit, of myself and any other woman that is doing relationships differently, we haven't had the collective environment to be able to do it differently until recently, because there has been a huge shift in the way that women are revered, and just the last 4 years, probably. Even since Uranus went into Taurus again, innovation, change, and the divine feminine and Mother Earth and all of the things that go along with it. And women have been so disrespected, and it's been so normal to cheat on a woman or to betray her or cross her boundary or just use and discard her body. So when you say, oh, for whatever reason I've had these experiences, it's because that's been the culture has been programming all of us to be on one end of that dynamic. And so now we are finally, and it did take the other 49% of the population to be like, hey, what are we doing? Like, why we don't, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, it's hurting me, not just her. And so it is different. And so it hasn't really been safe for women to even navigate what you're navigating right now. So that's a whole new thing. Like, this is fucking new. And it's still not 100% safe yet. We're still have a long way to go.
I've already had some interesting experiences with, what we're doing. And I've kind of like, maybe that could be another episode of just like, how do you process this type of work? Because I'm already going through it. There's already other energies in the field, and it's doing that work around our self-worth ultimately, because both of us are actually like, it's helping me go more into my feminine by actually just being in my space and nesting in my space again and going creative and not being such a nurturer. Mm-hmm. And I can see that doing that is actually in him being out there and spreading his beam, like you were talking about. That's encouraging his masculine energy, so it's actually, this is the dance.
Yeah.
This is the dance. And the dance is a duet. It's not a duel. Mm-hmm. That's when both people don't feel like, it's like, you soften first. No, you soften first.
Right.
My species has been softening since the beginning of time. And it's like, oh, well, you know what? I've been doing everything right now. You soften. right?
Shout out to the book Nonviolent Communication, because it talks
Yeah.
about that. And it's
Oh,
like,
it does?
oh yeah, you have to, that's the key, is you have to give empathy in order to receive empathy.
Oh,
But we're both
yeah.
trying to get empathy, and then we never get anywhere. 35
Well, and
years.
the
Step
nature of
right
the
off.
feminine, and like I like that, because nonviolent communication is pretty much taking this very ancient concept of the feminine. It's like the feminine cannot serve first. The feminist first has to experience love. Feminine energy first has to experience the feeling of love within in order to create anything to offer. I mean, it's just it's without that, what would you know to give?
You can't flow from a dry fountain.
No, you can't. You
Can't
can't.
drink, there's nothing there. Yeah.
So both people, or however many people, if it's a tribe communication, or like, because this is bringing up lots of stuff in tribe too, right? Because it's like different people relating in different ways. And, we don't really have, you're right, there's not very many mentors who are like, oh yeah, or people you could talk to and say like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. It's more like, what the fuck are you serious?
I honestly feel like I had this thought the other day, the best mentors to create this shift,
Yeah.
to helping guide the shift, are actually not in partnership.
Yeah.
Most of them are single because they refuse to be in that old relationship. And so they've had relationship experiences, but they are not in partnership because they are like staying true to the light. It's kind of like Jesus Christ, to use him as an example.
Right.
He left to apparently create a portal of light for people to go into the afterlife, but he had to sacrifice his divine partnership in order to do that, right? Wow. And so I kind of feel like that's the light showers right now as we're navigating this. And how the hell can you navigate this shift in partnership, the sacred union and sacred partnership that we're talking about, without tribe? Like,
there's no way.
You have, like, it's like the branches of the tree. It has to be a safe tribe, and it has to be a mindful tribe of people that are healthy doing the work. There's not rot in the roots and disease.
And that takes time. That's the other piece, is patience. It's a big lesson that I'm learning, is like patience with all of this, patience and trust. And yeah, if you're committed, and that the tribe piece is that has to take time, because since the 4 years that, just even we've already seen, like, there's ins and outs and different intricacies, and people are coming in with the synthetic version of what they think this is. And it's like, no, this is actually the real, we are really committed to do this. And we're really trying to, create something here. And it's more just to support one another in trying to navigate what is just right here with maybe a small handful of us. This is not like this is not trying to create some commune. Honestly, it's just, if you can get a handful of people that are aligned in your vision and that will hold you in the truth that you have for yourself. And this is the thing, like, some people, some of the best sage wisdom people are single, because that is how they are to navigate and learn about relationship in this lifetime. And some people, like, if you look at my chart, would not be very good if I was not in partnership, and I'm not good for the world if I am not learning in partnership. And so, there's this thing of like, I had always been walking around, you got to be alone, and you got to be single, and you got to do that like time. And then, but they never really had that until an astrologer said, that's not the case for everybody. Some people, and ultimately on this planet, we are in relationship. So those of us who have the astrological charts to thrive and learn in relationship, we need to support like that wisdom that's coming through for them. And those who are like wisdom keepers that are thriving, and they're helping us learn how to do self-love and self-care, we need to support those people. And that is what creates the biodiversity. And the more we call in, and then we need intergenerational, right? You need people who have like lived and lived the years on this soil, and know this soil and know this land. And then you want also the youngins who keep it fresh and keep it vibrant and keep it energetic. Well, so and that's it
throughout the generations too. And I feel like every relationship is a reflection. Every different relationship is an offering you a reflection of yourself. So going back to this witnessing your process, and I'm able to reflect back to you, oh yeah, I remember when I was feeling these same feelings, and this is where I'm at now. And it helps me, like, in sharing that, kind of see the truth of in all the muck, when you get caught in the muck. And I also feel like when you have someone, all of us, when we interact in these different relationships, we're searching for ourselves. We're searching for different reflections of us. It's like looking in these different mirrors. And is it really about wanting to have sex with another person? Not really, because it's just like you want to be seen. That's the deepest human need, is to be seen. And so
right.
it's like you're gathering these different reflections, and there's a way, I think, to do that in a very healthy way that doesn't threaten other important relationships. And again, as you were saying, like, you felt like you were not able to do that in past partnerships, or didn't have the desire. I think it's a cultural notion that programs women to cut that off and shut that
and
off.
also be okay with men, and like be almost proud of your man who's like getting all this attention, and like, oh, that's just what men do. But then, I mean, definitely scorned as an artist and a dancer when I got attention and I wanted to like spread that Venus. Like,
it has not historically been safe for women to attract too much attention. They can be beaten, killed, stalked, all of this stuff. So we get taught to dim our beam,
close it
and
off.
we'll take, and historically we have suffered and taken and accepted those consequences in order to stay safe. And so as the world becomes more safe, women are just starting now, and the feminine is just starting to blossom and learn, put our toes in the water. And then there's this ancient ancestral program from the masculine of like, no, you can't do that. I have to protect you. I have to own you. I have to cover you. I have to, do all this. And it's not a conscious thing. It's not what they consciously want to do, but it's just this deep programming. And then again, it's this dance. And there's so many interwoven dynamics as we go through this massive earthquake of relationship paradigm, that if we don't have like super high level communication skills and relationship skills, how the fuck can you manage this? And so that's got to be the piece, it's the self-regulation, it's the trust in self, the self-worth, the self-love, and then having the actual skills. And so you can work on these things simultaneously, and you can work on them in partnership, and you can work on them single. And I'm, most of my work right now with that is with my children. I'm working on it with my children, and I know that they are light years ahead of where I was at their age, and their relationships are going to be so much, they're going to avoid so much of the potholes that I fell into, just because of the work that I'm doing on myself.
I would say, like, for me, as kind of like, I think a beautiful wrap up thing that was coming through as you were talking and listening to you is, if any relationship in your life right now is not bringing you closer to yourself, AKA God, and your godliness and your gorgeous creativity and your creativity consciousness, your most authentic expression, any relationship in your life right now, what are you doing? Just got to ask yourself, what are you doing? What are you doing there? And what is it? What are you there? What is it serving you? Got to have these conversations with ourselves, because that the more we repress and dampen that part of ourselves, which is known as the feminine, or however, there's so many different terms that you could use, the yin energy, right? But that kundalini, that's how it gets dampened, is every relationship with where you are settling your authentic expression for the sake of someone else's happiness. Ask yourself, what are you doing?
That's an eclipse inquiry right there, contemplation, if I've ever heard one, especially while we're in Taurus season, North Node Taurus season, Taurus, self-worth, sovereignty, like staying on your throne. That's what it's all about. And yeah, no, we don't have time for that. We don't have time for those energy leaks. If you really want to be in the flow of abundance, you really have to be exquisitely mindful with your energy in all forms, and really save it for those things in people that are most divinely aligned. There's no no room for anything else. I truly believe that. And whatever's yours can't be taken from you. So that's that for abundance. So trust. I've been surrendering, leaning into trust, letting go. And life is really beautiful. You know, the ups and downs are there, and it's like wild, and I'm just found a way to enjoy the ride. And speaking of abundance, there's nothing that people who do not have happiness and joy within themselves, despite whatever is going on in this lifetime, they would pay everything to have that. And so if you can figure that out, that's wealth right there. That's prosperity. And thank you for being my sister and my partner, and creating that and playing with that and practicing that and talking about that and analyzing that and dancing that and flipping that and crying that and all of the different things. It's been this podcast has been a journey. You know, we're rounding up season 2 this month and breaking for the summer, and who knows if there will even be a season 3.
Wow.
Or what it'll expand into. But I know you and I are both getting have really amazing work coming in, sacred work that we're doing. And you work one-on-one with clients and in groups. Same with me. I work one-on-one with clients and in groups. We have a variety of offerings between us. Our work is very synergistic. So if you're watching this and you feel called or sparked by anything we've talked about, and you'd like to go deeper into your own personal journey of this, we are here to illuminate your path, and as we navigate it ourselves.
Beautiful. Yeah, I feel like month 1 has kind of done. I just finished my month 1 month of this new way of being. 2 more months until we meet with Yao again, Master Yao. And so I'm looking forward to give updates here and just keep inspiring our listeners to do things different.
Yeah. So thank you everyone who showed up live. Thank you for those who subscribed. I saw some new subscribers today.
Yay.
Yeah, thank you for sharing this video. If it hit you in the heart. And yeah, and stay tuned, because we've been talking about Master Yao. I'm honored that he is interested in coming on and really diving into deep stuff. He's been on this path, wow, for a long time, and at quite the peril too, like all kinds of threats and drama and all kinds of stuff because of his sacred calling and flirting with that edge of consciousness and energy and all.
Yeah, I mean, he's willing to make sex sacred in a very pornographic world. And we are so thankful for him, because that's a big place from where a lot of these concerns are just exasperated, and is that world of so he's really, really, really a treasure in our community. So yeah, we are lucky to have him on the show and listen to.
I was honored that he took the time to talk with me over the phone, and honored to, that shofar made the connection between us.
Yeah. And that's what tribe is about.
That's it. Rising tide lifts all boats. So
it's not about like, oh, if I call you in on this, well, I might lose clients too. It's like, there's more with
that way.
Yeah. It's just that we need to stop all that way of thinking is what's kept us separated, and what's created borders and state lines that the indigenous never agreed on. Like, that's just not who we are.
Unless you have an organism in the system who's a hungry hippo, aka narcissist, then you got to be like, okay, you're over here in this playpen.
Well, I have a separate country for that.
Come to this one. Okay. We got some guidelines over here. We got some rules of engagement. All right. Thank you, Kirti. Thank you to everyone. Have a beautiful week, and we'll be back soon with some more eclipse portal wisdom.
Yay. Love y'all. Peace.